And, I'm shocked now as I read and I find out what a great deception, especially this church, what a great deception it is, especially in regards to prophecy and what we have been force fed for so long about this present day state of Israel. And, as I begin to study into this a little bit more deeply, I'm now coming to an understanding that, God's dealings basically with Israel in the flesh that was, on the earth, that land in the Middle East, it was finished after Jesus. That's it. There is nowhere in the Bible that it says that, they are going to be restored and brought back into that land again after Jesus's prophecy in Matthew 23, which I will read, where he said, "Behold, your land is left unto you, your house is left unto you desolate, and you will not see me until you say, Blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord." And that is something which we have come to now realize, and this I'm saying that very recently, only after the beginning of these events that I began to study it, because I never really gave much thought to it before, is that this Israel deception in prophecy is a very big one. And it has been promoted heavily by the so-called church, especially the American church, because I believe what it does is it's a distraction. It takes people away from where they ought to be looking at. Jesus said, watch and pray. Okay, so they are being told what they should watch for. They are being told, look at Israel, look at Israel, look at Israel, look at Israel. Okay, this little piece of land in the Middle East called Israel. Okay, and look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that. So look there, don't look here. So what is happening is that where the prophecies of Jesus, for example, in Matthew 24, and in the Old Testament, prophecies of the day of the Lord, they concern the whole earth. They particularly concern Babylon. So what we really need to understand is not like, what is Israel? What we need to understand is what is Babylon. And Babylon, as I have come to understand, is the system. Okay, it is the system primarily of money, finance, and economics. That is the system that is going to come to an end and be destroyed. And that is why it is the system's final destruction we read about in Revelation chapter 18. That's what is happening, and that's what we need to be watching for. But what we are being told all the time is, look at Israel, look at Israel, look at Israel. Pray for Jerusalem. Why, Jerusalem, Jesus said, is left to you desolate. And Jerusalem, that is the present day Jerusalem, is just another city, really. What we are looking for is the new Jerusalem. We have God's dealing with people in the flesh, which is what the law of Moses did, is finished. It's over. He's never going back to it. So this idea that there's going to be another temple built and all that is not happening. It's not biblical. So what we need to understand is what is meant by that, we read in the Bible that Israel will be restored or saved, as we read in Romans 11, for example. But what does that restoration really mean? Does the Bible teach that the restoration of Israel is that they are going to be, these physical descendants of Israel, Jacob, of Abraham, they are going to come back to this land, and God is again going to, consider that to be the promised land? And then he is going to, go back and have this temple or whatever is going to be built that he is going to sanctify? No, not at all. Not at all. The restoration of Israel, which will take place because we are told in Romans 11 that, the branches were cut off. They were found to be in unbelief, which was to serve the purposes of God of grafting the Gentiles into the tree of Israel. It served its purposes to allow this blindness to come, that, this blindness is going to be that veil that is over their minds right now, as we read in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, it is going to be taken away. But what that means is not anything to do with a restoration into a physical piece of land. Okay? No, it means that they are spiritually going to turn to Jesus Christ and believe in him. They are going to have the faith, the remnant that will be chosen. They are going to have the faith of Abraham, and they are going to follow the Lamb, just like any person that comes to God after the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ must do. He must believe in Jesus, as we read in Romans 10. And if you will confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, you shall be saved. They must do the same thing to be counted as Israel once again, because the Israel that God is now dealing with is a spiritual entity. It is his body, which is a spiritual body. It is nothing to do anymore with the flesh and blood. So this deception, where all these prophecy people, they're all talking about Israel. Oh, there's a war going on. Oh, this means it's the end of the world. Oh, this means that Jesus is coming back. Oh, this is the tribulation. No, we have to really move away from it. I say, you should completely forget about what's this Middle East business is. Even in the end, I believe when these wars come, the World War III, what we might call, or 4 and 5, or whatever is going to follow, I do not believe that it is coming out of the Middle East. Okay, yeah, there's going to be some incidents that'll happen, but I believe it's going to be something which probably will be beyond that region. Okay, we shall wait and see. But this war in Jerusalem, it is not until the very end that it takes place, which is the time of Armageddon, which is again nothing to do with a restored nation of Israel. God is not coming back down at that time to defend this so-called nation of Israel, this present-day state of Israel. No, that battle of Armageddon is against all the armies of all the people on the earth, which shall be gathered together, not against Israel, but against the Lord Jesus Christ. Okay. So let me just begin here. Let's see, where shall we begin this from? So, let's begin understanding what is the restoration of Israel. And let's turn to maybe Matthew chapter 23 and look at what Jesus had to say, okay, about when he left Jerusalem, when he left the temple, which represented that old flesh and blood Israel, and that was symbolized by the temple which was in Jerusalem. So we can read here at the very end of this, when he laments over Jerusalem, as we shall see. First of all, in Matthew 23:36, on which I've done a great deal of study, where it says, "Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation." That all the blood that was shed of all the prophets of all time was going to come upon that generation that lived in Jerusalem at that time. And in Matthew verse 23:37, it says, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets, and stonest them which are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings, and ye would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate." This word desolate, it means a waste and a ruin. Okay, it solitary, lonely, desolate, uninhabited, but it also means of a woman neglected by her husband, from whom the husband withholds himself. Who is the bride and who is the husband? The Israel that existed back then, God did say, "I'm your husband," but then he left them. She was left forsaken because of their final rejection of God. They rejected his prophets. They rejected his, his godly, righteous people. All they did was to stone and to kill them. And in the end, they rejected God himself. And then leaving it desolate means that they were basically severed in that relationship as a spouse with God. That is one of the meanings of this. Your house is left unto you desolate, but it also means it's ruined. That whatever, that temple, that city, which symbolized God's promised land to the people in the flesh, which began under Moses, it had now come to an end. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate, For I say unto you, ye shall not see me henceforth, till ye say, Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. This word see, you shall not see. So let's take a look here. You shall not see is the word 1492, G1492. Ido, it means to perceive by the senses, perception, okay? To turn the eyes, the mind, the attention to anything. Basically, this is a perception, not just seeing something with your physical eyes, which is something we read in Genesis chapter 3 as well, that, Eve saw the tree with her eyes, she saw the physical fruit, but what she perceived was that it would be something that would make her wise. And this is the perception that it is talking about here. For I say unto you, you are not going to, until you see me and you say that I am coming, that, I am he who has come in the name of the Lord, this desolation, this separation is going to continue. So the question we need to ask is now, is this present day state of Israel, are these people that are saying, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord, to Jesus? No, not at all. Not at all. As a matter of fact, Israel is one of the most anti-Christian countries in the world. There are all sorts of laws against, like Jesus Christ. He is even more vehemently rejected today than he was by the chief priests and the Pharisees, but they put him in trial and crucified him. So, is this when Jesus himself said that, I am not coming to you until you see me and perceive me as the Messiah and say that I'm coming to you in the name of the Lord? I'm not coming. So if he's not there, is this the nation of God, a country of God, a people of God? No, it is not. It is not. It is a deception. Therefore, to say that this is God's chosen, no, it is not. God's chosen are those who believe in Jesus Christ and who obey and follow him. That's who they are. Okay. And this here again, we can read this here one more time. We can continue looking at scripture after scripture that teaches us this here, that this is talking about this restoration. It is something that is of a spiritual nature. It had nothing to do with being people bringing them back and restoring them into this nation. Now, it is a fact that Jesus Christ is going to reign and rule and reign from Jerusalem. So in a manner of speaking, that part of the world will be restored to Israel, but it is not going to be restored to Israel from the flesh. It is going to be restored to Israel that is spiritual Israel, which includes us, which includes all believers, whether their father is Abraham in the body or not. It doesn't matter. Any believer, as we read, there is no Jew or Gentile, but it is those who believe in him, who have the faith of the Son of God. They are the sons of God. They are the children of God. They are his offspring. They are spiritual Israel. The Bible is very clear on that. So yes, even when Jesus Christ comes and he rules there, he will be ruling with Israel, but then his kingdom is not going to be limited to this little piece of land. It's going to be the whole earth. Okay? So all the earth at that time when Jesus returns will be Israel, because at that moment in time, anyhow, they will be all his believers that will come with him to rule and reign on the earth. Okay. So this idea of, everybody just keep your prophecy focused on this little, what's going on over there, it's a major distraction. And there's a reason for it. The reason, one thing it hides is, like I told you, it hides the identity of Babylon, which is what we understand, that Babylon is many different things, okay? It's not just one thing. It is, of course, ultimately, it is the system, the financial monetary system, but then it has, underneath it, it has other arms, which would be like a physical arm, that it has a physical body which acts on its behalf. The head is the spiritual entity, which is the ultimate lover of money, which is Satan. And then, there is a body which goes around to do his bidding, which has, some very powerful countries that follow those dictates. And on top of that list comes the USA in this present time. this identity of Babylon is going to change until the end when the Antichrist comes and does battle. But it is, yeah. So that is something which, especially these American preachers, that's what they are doing. Whether they're deceived or they are actually intentional deceivers, and many of them are, especially the big name ones, they know exactly what they're doing. But there are some that just follow them, and because they don't study, they don't understand themselves, then they just parrot what these other guys are teaching them. And that is the reason why they have such a big, push towards keeping everybody's attention focused on this little piece of land called Israel in the Middle East. As far as the fulfillment of prophecy is concerned, they don't look inwards. They don't shout from the rooftops like the prophets did. When God sent Jeremiah, he went into Jerusalem right up to the king and told him, you are evil. You guys are doing evil and you are going to suffer God's judgment. They're not telling them, to the ones in Washington or, in their powerful leaders, whatever, today, that, hey, you are all doing evil in the sight of the Lord, and judgment, you're going to bring judgment upon our land here. They don't do that because they got all their church looking over there. Look over there. Look over there. Don't look inside. Don't look at ourselves. Let's not look at ourselves. Let's look outside. That's what happens, okay? So this restoration of Israel topic is something which, again, we should study more depth. And, I would like to stop this shortly and share this with you because, again, like I said, this is something which I have not studied in depth at present time, but I would like to hear your understanding of what, if you're in agreement or disagreement with me here or not, whether there is any reason why we should all be focused in on what is happening over there and what, expect things to be happening only over there. No. Now I'm going to move on, and I want to show you once I tell you about this here. Let's quickly look at Romans chapter 11, for example. And in this here, we can read in 11:5, and even so, at the present time, there is a remnant according to the election of grace. So he's talking about here that, and then he goes on to explain that, yes, the mystery of Israel's salvation from verse 25. I'll come back to verse 5 in a minute. For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. This is a very important verse of scripture, especially in regards to the fulfillment of Bible prophecy, because we understand that, yes, that blindness happened to those who were the flesh and blood Israel, so that the fullness of the Gentiles, that the Gentiles could be made part of the body of God, of Christ, okay? But there is going to be a time when these Gentiles who are not born from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they are in the flesh, their numbers are going to be completed, and God is going to say, okay, that's it. There's no more Gentile. Anybody that is not of the flesh and blood descendant of Israel can now be partaker of or be grafted into this tree anymore. Okay, so do we understand now when does that happen? Okay, and what happens after that has happened? And in my estimation, this happens after the opening of the sixth seal in Revelation chapter 6 and into chapter 7, which we will take a look at in a minute. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. Now, when it says all Israel shall be saved, in verse 5, it tells us here, even so at this present time, also there is a remnant according to the election of grace. So we understand that it is not going to be every flesh and blood person ever born of Israel, whether in the past or in the present time, but again, those that God has chosen, and they are going to be, even that blindness which has happened to them, it is going to be taken away. Because why? When the deliverer will come, and he is going to turn ungodliness. So that ungodliness, turning away from Jacob, is what restores Israel, the physical descendant, the flesh and blood Israel, back to their God. And that is when they are transformed from flesh to spirit. Okay, they are born again, just like everybody that comes to God must be. And then their relationship with God is on a spiritual level. Their kingdom, their city that they will look for will be the new heavenly Jerusalem. It has nothing to do with the city that is on the earth today called Jerusalem. Okay, and this year, when will this ungodliness be driven from Jacob? Now we can look in here in 2 Corinthians chapter 3. We can take a look here, for example, towards the end of the chapter. It tells us in verse 14, 2 Corinthians 3:14, but their minds were blinded. Did we not just read in Romans that blindness in part has happened to Israel? Okay, so this is Rome. Now Paul is explaining again. Now he's going to tell us when this ungodliness is going to be driven away from Jacob. But their minds were blinded, for until this day remains the same veil untaken away in the reading of the Old Testament, which veil is done away in Christ. So, we understand that the veil of darkness, which was in our mind, has been lifted. But that veil of blindness is still on the minds of that Israel, so-called. And it had nothing to do with the people that are dwelling in the state of Israel at the present time. No. Okay, these people that are the Israel, the chosen of God, they could be anywhere on the earth, even the uttermost part of heaven, we are told. Okay, so when that time comes, when God is going to seal those who are His, that is going to restore these children, and I will show you when that will happen, then it has again done, because it is a spiritual event. They have come to believe in Him. Those who will called and they are chosen, just He has out of the Gentiles. He will again have predetermined that a certain number of these remnant, who are the actual flesh and blood descendants of Israel, they are going to come to Him. Ungodliness is going to be driven away. Now, how can ungodliness be driven away? Only by a person believing in God. And how do we believe in God? By believing in Jesus Christ. So again, does that tell you? So is that the present day state of Israel? Is that a godly or an ungodly country or state or nation? They're very ungodly because they don't believe in Jesus. So until they believe in Jesus, they don't believe in God. And if they don't believe in God, they're still ungodliness. So ungodliness has not been driven away from them. Now we'll read here in verse 14. But their minds were driven, for until that day remains the same veil untaken away in the reading of the Old Testament, which veil is done away in Christ. But even unto this day, when Moses is read, the veil is upon their heart. Nevertheless, look at this here. This is when the ungodliness is going to be driven away. Nevertheless, when it shall turn to the Lord, the veil shall be taken away. Again, he's saying shall be taken away. It's a future event. This is after the death, burial, resurrection of Jesus Christ. And he's talking about something that is going to happen. And when it shall turn to the Lord, the veil, the blindness shall be lifted off them. Is he talking about, did he say that God is going to gather them all together and restore them to this piece of land? And that's the meaning of driving ungodliness away from Jacob? No, he's talking about that veil of darkness on their heart and their mind being lifted. It's a spiritual event. Okay? Now the Lord is that, nevertheless, when it, meaning Israel, shall turn to the Lord, the veil shall be taken away. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and with the Spirit of the Lord there is liberty, but we all with open face, beholding as in a glass the glory of the Lord, are changed in the same image from glory to glory, even as by the Spirit of the Lord. That's what needs to happen for that restoration to take place. Therefore, this argument, people have been arguing, and I said in one of my previous videos that this is not restored Israel. And the people argue, oh yeah, it is. In 1948, it became a nation, therefore it's restored. No, it isn't. How the history of this present day Israel, most people don't know how it came about, what powers brought it about, and what was the reason for it. And I think one of the reasons why it even exists is for the purposes of deception. Okay, that's what it is. That it is not godly restoration. God is not restored now. It's not that it's not going to serve God's purposes. All the deceptions and lies and everything that happens does serve God's purposes, but it is not what, according to the Bible, according to the New Testament, is meant by restored Israel. That is the spiritual restoration. And this restoration, my friends, takes place in Revelation. In the book of Revelation, we read in Revelation chapter 7 and verse 1, and after these things, I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of God in their forehead. What is this seal? Seal, to set a seal, mark with a seal, to seal, just like God put a mark upon Cain to identify him, not as a godly person, but rather as an ungodly person. This is the opposite. This is the seal of God. Okay. It is to set a mark upon by the impress of a seal or a stamp, to confirm, to authenticate, to place beyond a doubt. So this restoration of Israel, as we read here in the heading, the 144,000 of Israel seal, this is done by God Almighty himself. This is not a man thing, that you gather some people together from Europe and Russia and, somewhere all over parts of the world and bring them into this place and call it restored Israel. No, this is the sealing because of their faith that it is going to take place. And God will give them the faith just as he has given it to us. So when that time comes and the sealing, this restoration, it begins with these 144,000. Now, that does not mean that, that is the only number that is going to be restored out of the children of Israel, or the tribes of Israel. I believe there are going to be more, but this is when it begins. And the beginning of this event also marks the end of the time of the Gentiles, the fullness of the time, Gentiles. That means that the fullness of the Gentiles will have come in by this time. And now this is when God is restoring those who were blinded to serve his purposes of bringing in the Gentiles. Once that purpose has been fulfilled, he is going to again graft them back. This Israel, this chosen remnant, he's going to graft them back into the tree of Israel. Okay. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God, and he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God. How can you become a servant of God? Without believing in him, you cannot serve him. So we serve him through faith, and that is what this is happening here. They have been sealed with faith, the faith of Abraham, servants of a God in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. This, my friends, is the time when this restoration of Israel will take place. Long after the first 4 seals, the beginning of sorrows, all that has already taken place. Even the heaven has departed as a scroll in Revelation chapter 6, long after that. So when we want to understand prophecy, when we understand what to watch for, we do not look at Israel. Mark my words, this is a very important thing for you to understand so you're not deceived. As a matter of fact, all these, there are many passages in the Old Testament which I would say that you do not look for those events. Like Lydia, for example, has sent me a passage from Zephaniah, okay? And I don't have it in front of me here, but you can read it in one of the comments, And again, those events that are marked in those books, okay, some of them have already happened. We do not know, as a matter of fact, maybe all of them are, except for the ones that deal directly with the day of the Lord. But, events that specifically talk about the nation of Israel and what was happening down there, I believe most of them are already been in the past. Therefore, those prophecies, if you look for that, even the prophecy of Damascus in Isaiah 17, for all we know, that Damascus may already have been, because for one thing, we don't have any real history that we can look back at and see what has actually transpired, because everything we learn in this world is a lie. So, and again, this present day city may not even be that Damascus that is being referred to there. We don't know that. But God has given us very specific information that we can look at, and we can follow it, and we can understand it. And what begins by not looking back over there, by looking at what Jesus taught us to look at. So as an example, if you were to look at this Isaiah chapter 17, which talks about Damascus, and it says an oracle concerning Damascus. But when you look at the whole chapter, which is 14 verses long, it is not just about Damascus. And it is hard to determine if this is a prophecy that concerns the last generation, the days of the last generation, the time of the so-called tribulation. So let's just read this quickly. In Isaiah 17:1, we read, "The burden of Damascus, behold, the Damascus is taken away from being a city, it shall be a ruinous heap." Okay, and this is pretty much all that it tells us about it, okay? It tells us that it shall be a ruinous heap. Now, it is apparent that Damascus in the past has been reduced to a ruinous heap, just as Jerusalem has been, and many other cities that were later rebuilt, including the most famous one of them all, which is Jericho, okay? So, is this a prophecy that is a time of the end? Is this supposed to happen in the time of the tribulation? It is not so clear from this chapter, because when we continue reading here, we shall see that this is more about Ephraim, Israel, concerning that land and what people in Israel were doing, than it is just about Damascus. So verse 2, "The cities of Aroer are forsaken. They shall be for flocks which shall lie down, and none shall make them afraid." And that again has happened all through history. Major cities have been reduced, and then wild animals move in there. Even today, you can see like so many places are discovered. Like in Cambodia, they have that very famous ruins at Angkor Wat, and in Machu Picchu in the Middle East, everywhere in the world, we see this all over. But sometimes those are rebuilt and they are re-inhabited. The fortress also, now look at this year. So this year is not concerning Damascus at all now. "The fortress also shall cease from Ephraim, and the kingdom from Damascus. And the remnant of Syria, they shall be as the glory of the children of Israel, saith the Lord of hosts." So the condition of Damascus, or the situation in Damascus, of what was being prophesied about Damascus, not necessarily in the end of days, but back in the day, okay, when this was written at the time of Isaiah, like over 2,000 years ago. Okay, that's when this is speaking about. And it is said that the glory, the Assyria shall be as the glory of the children of Israel. Like, is that the present day Israel? No, because we can read here in verse 4, "And in that day shall come to pass that the glory of Jacob shall be made thin, and the fatness of his flesh shall wax lean." So the glory of Damascus is being compared to what was going to happen and what was already happening to Jacob, Israel, that their glory was fading away. It was being made thin. His flesh was waxing lean. They were suffering judgment. "And it shall be as when the harvestman gathereth the corn, and reapeth the ears with his arm, and it shall be as he that gathereth ears in the valley of Rephaim. Yet gleaning grapes shall be left in it." See? This is again the reason why I'm saying that, yes, even though this prophecy about Damascus is probably already being fulfilled, that it was destroyed, it was reduced to a ruinous heap, but just like as Israel was left with some gleaning grapes with a remnant in it, yet gleaning grapes shall be left in it as the shaking of an olive tree, 2 or 3 berries in the top of the uppermost bough, 4 or 5 in the outermost fruitful branches thereof, saith the Lord God of Israel. At that day shall a man look to his Maker, and his eyes shall have respect to the Holy One of Israel. And he shall not look to the altars, the work of his hands, neither shall respect that which his fingers have made, either the groves or the images. And again, this part has once again been fulfilled. For example, at the time of Cyrus, in the days of Ezra and Nehemiah, when Israel came back from the exile in Babylon and in Persia, they came and they did have respect to the Holy One of Israel. They did follow God again for a while, and they rebuilt Jerusalem. So is this also applicable to what happened in Damascus? I don't know, but probably so. And he shall not look to the altars, the work of his hand, neither shall have respect that which his fingers have made, either the groves or the images. In that day shall his strong cities be as a forsaken bough and an uppermost branch, which they left because of the children of Israel, and there shall be desolation. Was there desolation? Yeah, for 70 years for sure in Jerusalem, it was left entirely desolate, okay? After the destruction by the Babylonians under Nebuchadnezzar and his successors. Because thou hast forgotten, this is what happened. This is talking about the judgment of Israel, and Damascus is also being compared to what was actually going to happen to Israel. In that day shall his strong cities be as a forsaken bough and an uppermost branch, which they left because of the children of Israel, and there shall be desolation. Because thou hast forgotten the God of thy salvation, and hast not been mindful of the rock of thy strength. Therefore shalt thou plant pleasant plants, and shalt set it with strange slips. In that day shalt thou make thy plant to grow. In the morning thou shalt make thy seed to flourish, but the harvest shall be a heap in the day of grief and of desperate sorrow. So what it is prophesying here is that destruction is coming, judgment is coming, misery is coming, sorrow is coming. But it is not necessarily applying to the Israel or to Damascus in the end times. I don't think so. I think these prophecies have already been fulfilled. Okay. Woe to the multitude of many people, which make a noise like the noise of the seas, and to the rushing of nations that make a rushing like the rushing of mighty waters. The nations shall rush like the rushing of many waters, but God shall rebuke them, and they shall flee far off, and shall be chased as the chaff of the mountains before the wind, and like a rolling thing before the whirlwind. And behold, at eventide trouble, and before the morning he is not. So he says, this judgment, when it befalls, it comes rapidly, fast, and it is destructive. This is the portion of them that spoil us, and the lot of them that rob us. Okay, so these prophecies, again, they are very difficult to determine if these are. No, I would actually disagree with this interpretation that this is a prophecy about the end times, or it is going to happen in our time. That doesn't mean that Damascus or even the present-day Jerusalem, etc., are not again going to suffer catastrophic destruction. It is quite possible and it's quite likely. But I would also say that these prophecies of Isaiah were actually fulfilled back many, a couple thousand years ago even, and these have already come to pass. So what we should concern ourselves with is prophecies that we know are specifically going to apply to the days of the last generation, which we call the time of the tribulation. And those we read in the New Testament, especially in chapters such as Matthew 24 and in the entire book of Revelation. So before I go again into the New Testament and to see what signs we ought to be looking for, I just wanted to refer to Zephaniah 2, which somebody had sent me as prophecies that are in the future at the end of time. But you know what, when you look at all these nations and all these places that are mentioned in here, such as Assyria or even Ammon, etc., these already have suffered judgment in the past. They already have been destroyed in the past. So it is not necessarily true that these are end times, what we call the end times, day of tribulation, the time of tribulation, the days of the last generation prophecies. I would say that these refer more to the times that are past than to the future. Now, of course, in the future, the entire world is going to suffer judgment. So any of these nations and peoples that may still be around, they will also suffer judgment for sure. But do they specifically, this chapter, for example, in Zephaniah chapter 2, let me just read that out to you. Does they refer particularly to the days of the last generation, the last 40 years, in which all the events of Matthew 24 and the book of Revelation are going to be completed? I don't think so. It says judgment on Judah's enemies, Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 1. Gather yourselves together, yea, gather together, O nation not desired. First of all, this O nation not desired is talking about Israel. So if this is referring to the end times, then people say, God is coming to defend the state of Israel, this country called Israel in the Middle East that is right now. But here it's telling us that it is a nation not desired, just as we read in Isaiah chapter 17, that, the judgment of Ephraim was just as evil as all the neighboring countries around them, and God was pronouncing judgment upon all of them as it is now. So if this does apply to the end time, then this is not a battle of Israel against the rest. No. In the end times, the enemy is going to be God. It's going to be Jesus Christ. Just as we read in Psalm 2, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh, the Lord shall have them in derision, and then shall he speak unto them in his wrath and vex them in his sore displeasure. And that is because in the end time there is only one enemy, which is Jesus Christ and those who believe in Jesus Christ. It really has nothing to do with this piece of land in the Middle East called Israel. So let's read quickly through Zephaniah chapter 2. Gather yourselves together, yea, gather together, O nation not desired. Before the decree bring forth, before the day pass as the chaff, before the fierce anger of the Lord come upon you, before the day of the Lord's anger come upon you. So the day of the Lord's anger, there's been many days of the Lord's anger in the past, especially upon Jerusalem and the other nations around in that region, okay? It has already happened in the past. Seek ye the Lord, all ye the meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be ye shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger. For Gaza shall be forsaken. See, people, when they read Gaza today, and they think that, what is being written here applies to this Gaza in this present time and not in the past. But it was already happened in the past. It was already forsaken. People were taken captive from there and led away into different countries, into Assyria, Babylon, etc., etc. All these things already happened. What we read about happening to Jerusalem also happened to the other, Moab and Edom and all those places round about there as well. Okay, seek ye the Lord, all ye meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be ye shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger. For Gaza shall be forsaken, and Ashkelon a desolation. They shall drive out Ashdod at the noonday, and Ekron shall be rooted up. Woe unto the inhabitants of the sea coast. Again, this is like Tyre and Zidon, the area of the Philistines. Tyre was completely destroyed by Alexander the Great. So all these areas of the sea coast, they have already suffered destruction. Their ruins exist up until this very day. So woe unto the sea is inhabitants of the sea coast, the nation of the Cherethites. The word of the Lord is against you, O Canaan, the land of the Philistines. I will even destroy thee, that there shall be no inhabitant. That has also happened in the past. And the sea coast shall be dwellings and cottages for shepherds and folds of flocks, also happened. And the coast shall be for the remnant of the house of Judah. They shall feed thereupon, in the houses of Ashkelon shall they lie down. In the evening, for the Lord their God shall visit them and turn away their captivity. That has also already happened. Their captivity was already turned away in the time of the Persians when they returned from their captivity in Babylon. I believe this is a reference to the past. There is no captivity in which they are captive right now. What is being held captive is in the captivity of spiritual blindness from which God has promised to deliver them, not necessarily from any type of physical captivity. There is this year that, people talk about all the Jews are going to be gathered from around the world and brought back. I don't believe it applies to this time. I think this is talking about what happened in the past. I have heard the reproach of Moab and the revilings of the children of Ammon, whereby they have reproached my people and magnified themselves against their border, which they did. When Jerusalem was destroyed under Nebuchadnezzar, all the neighboring countries were clapping their hands and they were rejoicing. So that then that judgment which fell Jerusalem also fell upon them. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel. That's happened, under the Persians, under the Grecians. They came and they destroyed all these places. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, surely Moab shall be as Sodom, and the children of Ammon as Gomorrah, even the breeding of nettles and salt pits and the perpetual desolation. The residue of my people shall spoil them, and the remnant of my people shall possess them. Okay. The Lord will be terrible, and they shall have for their pride. This shall they have for their pride, because they have reproached and magnified themselves against the people of the Lord of hosts. So who are the people of the Lord of hosts? They are those who believe in Christ Jesus. They are the people of the Lord of hosts. Okay? No, they are not like, the natural Israel is not the people of the Lord of hosts. They are the spiritual Israel, is the people of the Lord of hosts. So this is talking about natural judgments of natural people in a natural land. And therefore, I think these prophecies most likely, I'm not saying I'm 100% correct, that none of this may not apply to the end times, but I believe it is definitely the greater possibility here is that these prophecies, they apply to what has happened in the past, that they've already been fulfilled in the past. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, surely Moab shall be as Sodom, and the children of Ammon as Gomorrah, even the breeding of nettles and salt pits, and a perpetual desolation. The residue of my people shall spoil them, and the remnant of my people shall possess them. This shall they have for their pride, because they have reproached and magnified themselves against the people of the Lord of hosts. The Lord will be terrible unto them, for he will famish all the gods of the earth, and men shall worship him, every one from his place, even all the isles of the heathen. One of the problems we have is that, history, as it is taught to us in the history books, is very, very suspect. It's very hard to believe what is true and what's not, other than that which is written in the Bible. So in the Bible, after the Babylonian captivity until, Jesus Christ, there is a period of some 400 or 500 years. We do not know what exactly was happening there. There are some histories that have been written, but again, because they're not in the Bible, therefore they're not reliable. Okay, so it is likely that all these prophecies against Moab and Ammon and these children of Israel coming back from the captivity, possessing those lands, it is most likely that they've already been fulfilled. The Lord will be terrible unto them, for he will famish all the gods of the earth, and men shall worship him, every one from his place, even all the isles of the heathen. Ye Ethiopians also, ye shall be slain by my sword. Again, is that applying to Ethiopia today? I don't think so. And he will stretch out his hand against the north. Now again, like the earth itself, every nation and every country in this time is going to see destruction. That would include Ethiopia. But I believe, this is because Ethiopia at one point in time was like, a prominent country, which it no longer is. So that prominence has been diminished, it has been destroyed, and it has happened in the past. Ye Ethiopians also, you shall be slain by my sword. And he will stretch out his hand against the north and destroy Assyria, which has already happened. Will make Nineveh a desolation and dry like a wilderness, already happened. And flocks shall lie down in the midst of her. All the beasts of the nations, both the cormorant and the bittern, shall lodge in the upper lintels of it. Their voice shall sing in the windows, desolation shall be in the thresholds, for he shall uncover the cedar work, already happened. This is the rejoicing city that dwelt carelessly, that said in her heart, I am, and there is none else beside me. How is she become a desolation, a place for beasts to lie down? Every one that passeth by her shall hiss and wag his head. So again, the point is that, when we read some of these prophecies, especially in the Old Testament, we have to be very careful not automatically to assign them to the time of the end time, to the time of the tribulation, lump everything together in the end times. And, because that leads us to, false geographies, false, political situations in this present time, trying to assign, which country right now is Moab, which one is Ammon, which one is, Akron and all that kind of stuff, to try to figure all that out when we don't need to. Because the prophecies that Jesus gave us, they are so plain and they apply to the whole world that, if we just look at those, we can never be confused or deceived. So that is what I will continue with in part 2. but I just wanted to, to relate these passages, to study these passages, to put forth this interpretation that, a lot of these prophecies, they apply to, they have had a historical fulfillment. They are not necessarily applicable to the future. So, having covered in great detail the signs that we should really be watching for as these last days, the last generation begin to unfold and events begin to accelerate, I wanted to become more catastrophic. I really wanted to actually, the topic of this study is not necessarily those signs, but it is what is the role of this present day state of Israel, this country in the Middle East called Israel. Is this like, what the evangelical church in America in particular, what they want us to believe is that this is a God's chosen people. This is God's land and God is coming to defend it. But is that what the Bible teaches? Some people here, after they watch this, will probably start accusing me of being an anti-Semitic or whatever. I don't even understand what a Semitic person is. It's not just the Jewish people. Most of the Muslim people, there are a lot of Muslim people in those nations that are also Semitic. Okay, so that is a different topic. But what I want to point out here is that in the Bible, this idea that, God is again going to give a piece of land back and call that Israel, it is not supported by the Bible. As a matter of fact, we can read in Revelation chapter 11, verse 8, for example, in regards to the two witnesses, and the dead body shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt. So God calls this land Sodom and Egypt. Okay, so how can that be? Is God then the God of Sodom and Egypt? Obviously not. So therefore, we need to go by what, no matter what anybody else is teaching out there, we go by what the Bible teaches. Therefore, we are only focused on that, on spiritual fulfillment of prophecy, not on a natural fulfillment. There is no more role of a natural Israel in the Bible as far as I can determine, and then I will continue this study in chapter 2, Revelation 11:8, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified, which obviously is Jerusalem. Okay, so that is the continuation. So I will continue this in part 2, and I'm going to finish this one here now.
You died on Calvary.
I do have an email list where I send out invites to our live Zoom fellowships on the weekend. And we also have Bible studies or a Bible fellowship WhatsApp group in which like minded believers can connect with each other, speak to each other, and, have fellowship with each other. So if you want to, you can email me at psandhu23@icloud.com. And if you want to join the WhatsApp group as well, then also send your mobile number and I will add you to it.